Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Juno, starring Ellen Page before she was Elliot. I'll talk about it in a minute. Michael Cera, Jennifer Garner, Jason Bateman, Allison Janney, J.K. Simmons, and Olivia Thirlby, directed by Jason Reitman. Now, before I get into this, why did I say Ellen Page instead of Elliot Page? Well, this was while she was a female at the time until this was before she ever turned into a male, let's say. So that's what I'm going to be calling her like for like the whole show at best. And I remember really seeing this movie in theaters and remember really enjoying it. But is it as good as I remember? Let's get into it. Juno McGuff, played by Ellen Page before she was ever Elliot, is pregnant with a baby as she thinks about how she had sexual intercourse with Paulie Bleeker, played by Michael Cera from Superbad. That's where I primarily know him from first. And walks to a convenience store as we get the opening credits. And I like the drawings in the opening credits sequence as Juno arrives at the convenience store to test if she's really pregnant with a store clerk named Rollo, played by Rand Wilson, who was popular in The Office with Steve Carell. And I hear he's a difficult actor to deal with, despite he's barely in this movie. In fact, fun fact, he and director Jason Reitman didn't get along very well, and Jason is the son of Ivan Reitman, for Christ's sakes. I mean, come on, Rain. And I really enjoy Ellen or Elliot Page's character, as she's relatable as a teenager who ended up pregnant while in high school, as she calls her friend Leah, played by Olivia Thirlby, who is also very enjoyable in this movie, on her cheeseburger phone. And she asks to move the chair in a truck, and they talk about what sex with Bleeker is like. And I thought, oh my god, this is funny but serious writing, as it's a dark comedy at the same time. And I'm enjoying it at this point, as director Jason Reitman does a good job at making me care for the characters thus far. Juno tells Bleeker she's pregnant and tells him has to think about as she wants to get an abortion, and she bikes her bicycle to school and sees Leah, who's into teachers, and Juno and Bleeker get to class as they acting is great in this movie, particularly from Ellen or Elliot Page, and Michael Cera, who in general I'm not the biggest fan of. And everybody else is great in this movie as we get introduced to Mac McGuff, played by J.K. Simmons, and Juno's stepfather, Brenda, played by Allison Janney, and her sister Elby, as they're entertaining in this movie. And the cinematography is well shot, as this movie is well made, as Juno gets to the abortion place, and as the receptionist at the front desk asks if she wants a boysenberry condom, and I thought, ew. And she hears all the noises at the office and sees a friend of hers, Sue Chen, there, who brings up how babies need to be, existence. And Juno runs out and gets the idea of giving it up for adoption, and the plot is interesting, but at the same time, pretty damn sad. Juno and Leah look in the penny saver for parents that are looking to adopt a baby. They find Mark and Vanessa Loring, played by Jason Bateman and Jennifer Gardner, as Juno tells Mac and Bren about how she's pregnant, and she tells them about the plan Juno has for the baby. And the next week, Mac takes Juno to Mark and Vanessa's house, while Bleeker's mother tells Bleeker how she thinks Juno is an odd person. And Juno and Mac go to the house of the Lorings and talk about how they're going to give the baby to them, excuse me, once it's born. And Juno really likes them as a couple of upcoming parents, and the movie is well made, and director Jason Reitman and writer Diablo Cody does a great job of making these characters likable, as I really like these characters from start to finish, as they're very relatable, until Diablo Cody decided to write Jennifer's Body, which piece of crap film, let's say. Forget it there. Mark finds Juno in their bedroom, and they walk downstairs, and she sees some instruments as she's into music, and she and Mark talk about instruments as well as music while Max sits with Vanessa and their lawyer as she hears music and sees Juno and Mark playing music together, and brings them down as the sign of papers and tell Juno to give them some updates, and says she's 104% sure she made the right decision. And we move on to wintertime, as the first opening scene was autumn, and Bleeker jogs with the other kids while Juno is looking pregnant at school, while she goes to a checkup on the baby with Fred and Leah, And the ultra technician at the doctor's office comes off rude, while Bren tells her off by saying good things she's not taking care of the baby, which comes off jerkish, honestly. And the acting by these actors are great, and the movie is working tremendously, in my opinion. Juno goes to the Loring household to give some information, as Mark is a composer for mostly commercials, and shows her baby to Mark, and they continue the conversation about music as Juno stays a while and talk about music and watch a movie called The Wizard of Gore, which is actually a movie directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis, until Vanessa comes home and Juno shows Vanessa the photos of the baby. And this is the first movie with Jason Bateman I really like him in before some of his later movies. And this movie is working quite well. And great at the same time, might I add. Juno comes back home and she and Bren have a conversation about how Mark is a married man, and that turns into an argument, which is funny. While what was hilarious is she spilled blue icy in her vase, which is something which I cracked up at, because she has vomited blue icy before as Juno in a vase, as Juno goes to Bleeker's place, and his mother seems rather overprotective over her son, and Bleeker wants to go to get the band back together after the pregnancy is all over while Mark and Vanessa decide on paint in the baby's room, and Juno and Leah bump into Vanessa at the mall, and it was hilarious when Vanessa says she's out with her girlfriends, and Leah's led to believe she's gay, and Vanessa feels the baby kicking in Juno's stomach, and that was a sweet moment when Vanessa talks to the baby about how she can't wait to meet the baby, as she didn't feel the stomach. But I'm really liking this movie thus far, as it, like I said, it's great. It's engaging. Springtime comes, and Juno calls Mark while at school as they have lunch while Juno is 8 months pregnant. And people are staring at her as she learns Bleeker is taking a girl named Katrina, whom he doesn't like, to prom, as he has a plan to go to Benihana, and Juno is jealous of Bleeker's date for prom, and they have a fight and say some harsh words to one another, as she explains how she's a planet, and she goes to the Loring household once again to return the CDs to Mark, as he shows her a comic book called Yuki, who's a pregnant superhero, and they dance to some music and Mark is unfortunately thinking of leaving Vanessa because he's not ready, as Juno is upset with him about it. And Vanessa gets home and she learns Juno is upset because she learns Mark is divorcing Vanessa, and the dialogue is smart as the writing is well done. Juno cries while driving the car, and one nitpick I have: why would you drive a car when you're 8 months pregnant? I thought that doesn't work. Like, wouldn't you squish the baby to death? I'm no expert, but jeez. As that bothered me, as Mark and Vanessa have the same lawyer representing each other, as he wants to be on a rock and roll artist, while Mark is staying... Well, that's Mark anyways. And Juno gives a note to Vanessa and goes back home and has a decent chat. And we'll learn later that note says, if you're in, I'm in. And Juno has a decent chat with her father about how people can't always stay together forever. And Max says she needs to find a person who loves them for who they are. And Juno and Leah gives Bleeker a bunch of Tic Tacs in his mailbox, as it will set him for life, as she visits him at the track, and she apologizes to him and says she's in love with him as a lover. And this is romantic for a dark comedy. Juno is about to give birth as she feels her water break and waits at the hospital and gets the baby out of the stomach. And I'm no expert, but it sounds painful from what I've heard. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. As she has the baby, while Bleeker figures out Juno had the baby while he had a race to go to, and he gets to the hospital and rests with Juno, and they didn't want to see the baby as Vanessa meets the baby boy. And everybody's happy as we get one more scene in the summer as Juno and Bleeker sing and get their band back together, and they're deeply in love as they sing a song together with some joggers jogging by them as they kiss, and credits roll as the climax was beautiful. And I really like this movie, and I'll explain why in a rating. I'll give this movie a 8.5 out of 10. The performances are excellent by the actors, are great, and this is one of Ellen or Elliot Page's best performances, as this is one of Michael Cera's better performances, and the actors are great in their roles, as director Jason Reitman and writer Diablo Cody does a great job at making these characters likable as well as relatable from start to finish. The movie is well shot and well made, and as the cinematography is well done in my opinion, and the satire is hilarious in a dark way, and the movie is smart, funny, and adorable at the same time. It works tremendously to this day, and the writing is well done, like I said, and I have to confess, I voted for this movie to win Best Picture 2008, but another movie I'll get to won that year, and I'll talk about it, how I felt about that movie when the time comes. But this is a solid recommendation, as teenagers can learn from the mistakes this movie made as far as being pregnant in high school is concerned. Oh, take sex class, folks, come on. And it works for a lesson for teenagers, as a lesson for teenagers. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and until we get to the next one, whatever you kids do, take sex ed. Good night.